Since the 1970s, the people of Northern Ireland have been crying out for peace. Thousands have attended peace rallies like this one in Belfast, calling for an end to political violence. In May '98, the electorate in both parts of Ireland voted in favour of a new peace agreement. This was an initiative by the British and Irish governments which involved all of Northern Ireland's political leaders in talks. The agreement was followed by elections to a new Northern Ireland Assembly. Even politicians who didn't back the agreement engaged in this new structure with their political enemies for the first time. But it's not just those with a high media profile who have been working for peace. Many have been working in the background by both prayer and action. Their stories show that headline events are only one part of the peace process which is bearing fruit. The peace builders in this programme represent thousands of others from all parts of Ireland, whose cry from the heart is "We want peace." Belfast is a modern city with tremendous potential. It has a thriving commercial centre where day by day Protestants and Catholics, Unionists and Nationalists mingle freely and enjoy the benefits of the large stores and shopping centres. But it is also deeply divided and bears the scars of decades of sectarian violence between the Unionist majority who wish to see this part of Ireland remain part of the United Kingdom and the Nationalist minority who wish to see it become part of the Irish Republic. These divisions are exemplified by huge barriers known as peace lines, erected along the interface between certain nationalist or Catholic districts and neighbouring Unionist or Protestant areas. The city has endured almost 3 decades of terrorist bombings, shootings, beatings and riots in this period known as the Troubles. Throughout the Troubles, parts of the city have witnessed huge population shifts, as thousands of families have been uprooted from their homes through fear of attack. Many have retreated to areas which are overwhelmingly Unionist and Protestant, or else to the other side of the peace line, where the majority will be Nationalist and Catholic. It's at one of these interfaces that a community house has been established as a witness of Christian unity. This is one of Belfast's most divided and troubled areas, and this gate represents one of its most dangerous flashpoints. Noreen Christian is a Roman Catholic sister of the Dominican order. She chose to establish her Curragh community right on the peace line. The house had earlier been abandoned before she moved in 1992.
This area was devastated through the years of the Troubles, and here there was a double-fronted house which was in a terrible state, and along the peace line there had been a series of houses and the people had persevered for a long time trying to live there and had then disappeared because of further trouble. Over 1 week almost they disappeared. Now we've got a wall instead of those 8 houses. This whole area was very much blocked up, and the houses had not been used for several years, so they were vandalized, they were in very bad state of disrepair. And because they're so close to the peace line, we felt they would be ideal for our group that had been thinking for about 2 years of setting up another ecumenical community. The community we were supposed to be actually opening on the Tuesday the 5th, but that day a motorbike got through here. You'll see there's an extra blockage now, not only this huge massive block, but another extension of it at the very pedestrian opening, because a motorbike made its way through here with and 2 people on it and murdered a woman just down in the chemist on the opposite side of the road. and got away through Lanark Way. The result of that was Lanark Way was closed for the next year or so, and this extra block was put on the pedestrian gate. So that was the Tuesday before we came to live here, and part of our response to that was I linked in with the Cornerstone community that evening, and we prayed in front of that chemist, and we had people from both sides of the community linking in with us, and actually we announced it on the radio that we were doing it, and quite a large section of people from all over Belfast joined us in that. So that was kind of a very clear message that yes, we needed to be here, even though we're simple people and we can't do very much, but it kind of confirmed our desires to be present to the people who were suffering in this area. In one instance, there were 3 young men that I noticed picking up bottles here. I came through after them, discovered that they were throwing the bottles at the 2 houses opposite the gate, and there was petrol and rags inside, and they were they were hitting them at the doors, trying to start a fire. So I came out, and one of them threw a bottle at me, but fortunately I was able to duck behind a hedge and not get too much of it on me. The petrol was on my jacket and so forth, and had to be taken away for forensic evidence and so forth, but I wasn't hurt in any way. This huge gate affair has been there, well, I'd say probably 7 years now. This small gate, pedestrian gate, is open only from about 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 at night. If there's trouble either in any part of Northern Ireland, that gate gets closed and we're cut off from each other. Both sides of the community are cut off from each other. And in order to reach the other side, we have to literally go round maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles to get to the other side of this gate. Our whole purpose then for being here was to be present to the people in the pain of living in this very raw situation as it was at that time. There were no ceasefires in place, and trying to hear them and in some way listen and be seen to communicate with both sides of the road, and to try to hold some of that communication and hold some of it together, and yet model some way of coming together. But we took our time about that. We felt that we could be seen as some kind of threat, especially for people that we were living among here. They knew that in some way the Methodist Church approved of our being here, that the property belonged to the Methodist Church, but they also knew that we were different, because here we were 5, 6 adults living together with no emotional ties, no blood ties. What were we doing living together? What was our objective? Why were we there, you know? And I'm afraid our society is a rather suspicious one, and we always think there's a hidden agenda. So it took us about a year before we actually started forming groups and inviting people to come to the house formally for groups, the groups being people from both sides of the community.
Just behind Noreen's house is the local Methodist church and a more recent community initiative known as Fourth Spring. Houses on either side of the church were abandoned earlier in the Troubles. The church building itself was attacked many times and was on the point of closure. But today, an extended and modernised building houses the church sanctuary as well as community facilities, meeting the needs of not only the congregation, but the whole community. Fourth Spring is used by both Protestants and Catholics alike. It's a partnership between Noreen's Curragh, another ecumenical community known as Cornerstone, a local community association, and the Methodist Church. The church was ideally placed to play a relevant role in the life of the community, but change on this scale wasn't easy for the congregation.
Yes, I think arriving here into a church, sitting on an interface and seeing two communities totally polarised, I mean, I felt the church had to have some response to that. It's taken a while, it's been painful, and there's been a lot of sacrifice, and I think in reality, from the sort of Methodist perspective, you're kind of moving folk out of a comfort zone and really saying to them, the church is more than the Sunday thing. I mean, faith has to ultimately spill out into a very divided, fragmented society.
Christians working in Fourth Spring believe that part of living out the gospel is to serve their divided community in practical ways. They provide a living example of reconciled Protestants and Catholics working together. They want to break down the barriers that exist between the adults and encourage a new generation to learn to respect those of different faiths and creeds. Many of the youngsters here attend separate Protestant or Catholic schools, and Fourth Spring is the only opportunity to meet and mix with their counterparts.
On our opening evening here, kind of opening weekend, we had Indian dancers. The reason for that was to let folk realise this is a global village. There are only 1.5 million people living in the north of Ireland, and to let them see there's a wider world out there which can shape us and enable them to look outside themselves as well, which I think is important because it's a very parochial, inward-looking society, Irish society at times. One of the things I was saying very much to the congregation was using Wesley's kind of twin-track approach of personal holiness and social holiness, that ultimately what takes place in here must move outside this church building. And so it was really trying to create a community, create a climate for change, and allowing folk that live within this area to feel we can make a difference. And the church is just simply the enabling agent to do that. Some of the folk within the church I often kind of smile at, who have been praying for years for people to come in. They've no need to pray those prayers any longer, as this place is coming down with people from the community. In our community side, 500 people plus are going through that a week. So if people want to share their faith, which are always telling me they want to do, just come around here any day of the week, and the people are there who have no faith dynamic but who are interested. Ultimately, folk bought into it. We did lose a few folk, but interestingly, since this model is developed, this church has doubled inside 9 months, and it's doubled from people within the community. We arrived back here with a struggling congregation of 35 people approximately a year ago. That was what kind of summer of 97, and now we find ourselves in summer 98 of a congregation that's hitting 80 on a good Sunday morning, and they're all from the local community, and all of them never went to church before.
Gary's church has attained growth without sacrificing its evangelical theology. The Fourth Spring model has succeeded because people from different backgrounds took risks and were willing to work together for peace. A special network brings together and supports leaders involved in projects such as Fourth Spring. The Mediation Network for Northern Ireland was set up to promote the use of third-party intervention in disputes and to encourage creative responses to conflict. Their training program provides individuals the opportunity to enhance their understanding of conflict and processes of peace building, and to develop mediation and other practical skills for transforming destructive conflicts.
How can we develop constructive habits that will prevent destructive conflicts from originating?
Mediation Network is a source of support for leaders of many peace and community groups. These groups provide a very valuable service to their local communities, yet they often struggle to survive on small budgets, and their existence is usually due to the personal vision and commitment of community leaders. It's important then that they have access to training and can draw upon the strengths and experiences of others. Through this network, they learn from each other and often forge new and important partnerships.
Mediating problems that we were capable.
Individuals associated with Mediation Network come from a diversity of backgrounds. Everyone has a different strength, and each person contributes in his or her own way. Some, like Billy Mitchell, were directly involved in violence in the past. Billy is a former commander of the loyalist paramilitary group known as the Ulster Volunteer Force. He served 16 years in prison for his involvement in paramilitary violence. he has a particular sensitivity to the conditions which draw young people into terrorist organizations. His life is now dedicated to changing sectarian attitudes and providing constructive alternatives to lifestyles of violence. Today, he runs Link, an organization providing training and other opportunities to, amongst others, former prisoners. Many of his own attitudes changed in prison.
In prison, the time to reflect on a lot of the issues that we thought about outside were irrelevant. A lot of the issues were very often there was an irrational hatred of the other side. There was no reason. You know, our politics were sound bites, not an inch, no surrender. What we have, we hold. But you can't build a political system on sound bites, particularly sound bites that you didn't create, that other people gave to you.
Part of Billy's job through Link is to address the issues in disadvantaged areas which once contributed to his involvement in violence. Today, he has come to Mount Vernon, a Protestant housing estate with a high level of unemployment. He is meeting up with former paramilitary comrade Michael Atchison. He was brought up in this estate and now runs the local community centre. Both men are aware that young people from areas like this tend to become easy prey for the paramilitary godfathers. To tackle this problem, they must first find a way to improve the economic and social conditions and thus provide a brighter future for the estate.
These flats here were built in 1967 and were very much sought after at that particular time. But sadly we're seeing now the vandalism that is occurring in the estate at the minute. And it's true to say that the Northern Ireland House Executive at the present moment is determining whether to knock the flats down or not. Sadly, along with that, there we'll lose a community house, which we've only moved into in the last year, and which has been the base, and I could say that the whole catalyst for all the community development which is going on in Mount Vernon.
It took a long prison sentence to reveal to Michael Atchison that he had the capability to achieve academic qualifications. Being raised here had already put him in a prison of low self-esteem. He wants to rescue others in the estate from the same fate.
We have brought enough pointers into this area to show that this is one of the most deprived areas in North Belfast. Billy has helped us greatly in that by giving us the education on that. But sadly, being a prisoner, a loyalist prisoner for 10 years, coming out of jail, I had seen that the estate hadn't moved on, while as an individual I had moved on. Went to education, got O levels, A levels, done the Open University. I'm now back at university doing a diploma in community education. And I was seeing in the young people of Mount Vernon the same things that I had done. There was no future for them and that they were heading into paramilitary activity. We have very much tried to stop that, tried to halt it and give them another alternative, give them another route for their history.
It's all about empowerment, and until the communities are empowered and take ownership of their own lives, their own futures, then it's impossible for them to meet with other communities. So the empowerment starts here, and then we build the bridges that hopefully we can reach a new beginning and a new future for all our kids. And if it's go back to the Bible, where Jesus says he came to give life and give it more abundant life starts here in Mount Vernon. An abundant life needs social and economic development. And perhaps the other thing is we were part of the problem. Now we hope we're being part of the solution. I know that's a cliche, but it's one of those ones that's true.
Being part of the answer in Belfast sometimes means taking risks. At one time, these two men would have killed each other without a second thought. Liam Maskey is a former member of the IRA who has also served time in prison. Like Billy, Liam also reached a point in his life where he realised that violence was not the way forward. Today, the two men are jointly addressing a group of student teachers. It's a rare partnership, but one made easier through the experience of prison.
In prison, for the first time, we came face to face with our enemy, without guns in our hands. And we learned for the first time the art of dialogue, that in prison we had one enemy, and that was the people who were locking us up. If we wanted better conditions in prison, if we wanted better education, better food, better visiting facilities, we had to work together to achieve them. So By identifying a common need and a common enemy, we had something to talk about.
I like Billy. I was born and reared in North Belfast, just about 75 yards from this building. Billy has been saying about the importance that we build on, that by recognising that there are different traditions here. I am a Republican, I'm a nationalist. That's my aspiration. I want to see our country governed by Irish people without the interference of any other country. I never used to respect the fact that there were other people here who were deemed themselves as British. We are here to stay, and so are the people who proclaim to be British. So we have come to the realisation that, as James Connolly says, that a country is nothing without its people. And if we want to build a proper country, we have to first of all deal with the issues that involve all the people of the island. In many ways, our differences are seemingly irreconcilable, as in unionism or nationalism. I don't believe they are in many ways. I believe that there are a lot of issues that we can address. There's a lot of issues which we are addressing.
In prison, I also became a Christian, and one of the key commandments I learned in prison was I was to love my enemy. Not said to like your enemy, but I had to love my enemy. I had to do good unto those who were my enemy. I had to do unto others as I would expect them to do unto me. But we need to teach the kids that there's hope for the future.
Billy and Liam are still enemies in terms of their political aspirations, but they both work together for the good of their communities. Their conversion from violence and their commitment to peace building challenge others in terms of their responsibilities, not least the churches.
I want you to think in your minds what scene you picture when you hear these words. Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I with them.
Mediation Network believes that the churches have a key role to play in peace building. Northern Ireland has a high rate of church attendance, and churches play a pivotal role in much youth and community work. As well, reconciliation is at the centre of Christian faith and should be central to the church's life and mission. Therefore, a major priority for the Mediation Network is providing training for clergy and lay leaders to enhance their skills for peacemaking.
Fear.
Individuals like Noreen, Gary, Billy and Liam see peacemaking as essential to Christian discipleship. Many other individuals and groups share their understanding. However, getting churches as institutions to make peacemaking and reconciliation central priorities in their structures is still difficult. The Mediation Network's Churches Project seeks to support local and denominational efforts to do just that. One such effort is the Community Bridge Building Programme initiated in the Diocese of Down and Dromore in the Church of Ireland. At a special gathering of people from all of the parishes in the diocese, Bishop Harold Miller underlines the need for a deeper commitment to this special aspect of discipleship.
Churches are historic institutions, and they have put a great deal of energy into keeping themselves going as they are. And I think that in itself almost precludes them from having the energy to work with each other. It sometimes can be harder to work across the boundaries of different churches. Now that's not how we would like it to be, but that's how it often is. And I would say I'm very disappointed at how little work there is that goes on across the boundaries. But I think the way to start that is by personal relationships and friendships, by small things which will gradually grow.
And your parents were killed in that explosion, and you are here today. You told me earlier that that day divided your life in two.
Yeah, in just 1 minute, my life had changed from one.
Those bereaved in the Troubles are remembered at tonight's service. Reverend Trevor Williams interviews both a Protestant and a Catholic who, in spite of the terrible loss, have been strengthened in their faith and now use their experience to help others.
One of the things that I hope we will be able to enable people to do, along with the other organisations around us, is to meet the ordinary person from the other side. Because when they meet ordinary people from the other side, they begin to hear their story.
We were going out to Mass that morning, and a car drew alongside and shot through the window and the glass and everything. It was some sort of a, I don't know, it was a heavy weapon anyway. And my husband died 3 hours later with head injuries, and my daughter had a very serious eye injury, and my son had a leg injury, and we were just, our life was blown apart.
We need to hear each other's stories again and again and again, because in hearing each other's stories, we begin to respect each other and understand each other, even become fascinated by each other, and actually grow to like each other and discover that there's a whole wealth of relationships there that we didn't know existed before. And that in my experience, is exactly what happens. There is still a deep problem of sectarianism in Northern Ireland, and that will take many decades to heal. So all we can do is lay the foundations for that in this generation, and hope and pray that God in His mercy and by His Spirit will grant that maybe this work of reconciliation would take place even more quickly than we might imagine is possible.
Foundations are being laid in Belfast to create a better future into the next century. Building work is taking place and multi-million-pound structures point to progress being made. But those who are building peace have a realistic expectation of the task that lies before them. They are aware that seeds of bitterness sown in past decades have produced a harvest of violence. So they are praying that the seeds they are sowing today will produce a peaceful future for these children. They pray that neighbour will join with neighbour to bring a positive contribution to the city without the need for walls to keep them apart. They want to see people liberated to enjoy life to the full, free from the fear of violence or intimidation. Everyone has a contribution to make to the peace process, even if it's only a smile to a neighbour or a kind word. These drummers and musicians have used their talents to demonstrate how different cultural influences used together can provide cross-cultural entertainment for those of all traditions. Contributions of people like these and hundreds of other workers for peace have helped bring about the progress to date. Further progress requires that they and others keep on doing their bit and not give up. Then the people of Belfast can look forward to a lasting peace and a better future for everyone.